Welcome to Season 2 of Time and Materials, a construction-only podcast powered by livecost.com, where we sit down with interesting people doing interesting things in construction. These construction experts kindly give us their time so that you can walk away with the tools to make better day-to-day decisions in your construction career. Adam Chapman, founder of The Heat Geek, welcome to the Time and Materials podcast. Good to have you here, mate.
Thank you very much for having me on.
I like to start these things off with just getting to know the person and a bit of background. So tell us about how you ended up in plumbing and heating.
Most people ended up in plumbing and heating because they had an uncle or something that, was a plumber. Bit different.
Yourself,
yeah. Well, similar to yourself, I went traveling when I was 19 and I was in San Francisco. And I every hostel I would go to, I'd find carpenters, particularly, stopping off, earning $200, $300 a day or something on a building site. Then they'd fly off to South America for a couple of weeks, and then they'd go off to Australia, work for a bit, and then go to Thailand. And I watched that for a few months, 2 or 3 months, and got insanely jealous. And I was like, that's it, I'm going home, getting a trade. Like, that looks like the life for me. Went home, signed up for like a crash course type thing, got a job in commercial heating. And I suppose the rest is history from there. Didn't really end up get to go traveling fully with the trade under my belt. But I did get, my foot in the door and found a passion in that. And like, genuinely, sounds sad, and it is sad, but I don't care. I absolutely love it. Like, I love heating. Like, it's my pastime, as well as my job.
So did you fall into the great trap then, which is, you end up doing a little bit for yourself, and then suddenly you start to earn a little bit more and you're giving up and you can't go away again?
Yeah, kind of. Well, it's kind of a bit of a complex story. But I suppose I had to get the trade underneath the belt. To get the trade underneath your belt, you've got to do 2 or 3, 4 years, right? And then by that time, you kind of move on in life, etc. But then once I did have a trade, I wanted the freedom to be able to, if I wanted to, pack up and leave tomorrow. So I started doing a bit for myself, and I was doing anything like replacing door handles, redecorating houses. Even though I had plumbing, you can't just start up with a business, because there's one thing getting a trade, it's one thing starting a business. 2 totally different things, as you well know.
Yeah.
And, started off painting, decorating. When you're doing odd jobs like that, you're hardly going to be blowing up your bank account ready to go traveling. So by the time I had money to go traveling, I was kind of, settled and stuff like that. And started my first business, 2010, heating, getting work off landlords, stuff like that, bottom of the pile stuff. Then,
what age were you roughly when you started your own thing?
23.
23, yeah. And was that solo or with a true partnership?
Solo. Went straight on my own, and within 3 months I convinced my my now wife or fiance. This was 18 years, and that wasn't 18 years ago. How many years ago was this now? I'm 37. So what's that? 14 years ago. Within 3 months I convinced her to work with me and be answering the phones, because unlike sort of big construction, with heating, I wanted to be in more responsive, dealing directly with the customer, not bigger projects at the time. It didn't make sense to go out, go do a little bit of work, come back, send an email, get on the phone to this person, go out, do that job. Like, none of that made sense to me. So, right, I need someone in the office. I brought her in. She already had that quite a cushy job for the time. And so it began from there. Like, I just saw efficiency, or where I could find efficiency, put someone in to do that job so I could focus on going out on the road and making money. Things are a bit different now because you've got all the apps on your phone and stuff like that. I don't know how I'd handle that in the current climate. I think it'd probably be slightly different. But I do think you need specialities and people in their area doing their thing.
It's young, isn't it? Like, I wasn't too much older, a little bit older by the time I started venturing out on my own. But I don't know, maybe I'm disconnected a little bit. I don't see as many young trade business owners as there was. I think back in the day. I'm similar as yourself. But looking back now, you think you had enough experience to be able to go out and tackle your own business?
No, but I think that's the advantage. I think when you're young, you've got time, you're mentally dexterous, you're willing to try new stuff, you're more brave. And when you put yourself in those situations, you grow so much more rapidly because the pressure's on you to get it done. So yes and no, there's 2 answers to that. I think it's the best thing someone could do if they want to do that, is do it young. You don't want to be starting learning stuff like that when you've got, like, you're feeding a baby. That's for certain. And I've had 3 kids since, so I know how difficult that is.
How far along then did the heat? So first of all, what is the Heat Geek? Can you explain to people what the Heat Geek is and where the idea come from?
Yeah. So I'm running that heating business, and whilst I was running that heating business, I noticed that because I loved heating, I wanted to do the best job for every single project I went to. So in order for me to do that and display that kind of knowledge to the customer, I needed to know an answer for every single question they gave. And what I noticed was they'd ask me questions like, why is this pipe size been used for this over here? And hold on, I'm a plumber, I should know how to select a pipe size, not go, oh, it's 3 rads or 15 mil, or that you're a rule of thumb. I should know like the maths or whatever behind it. And so I started like doing a bit of research, and I found that there wasn't anywhere to go for it. Like there was a gap, there was this void of information, and people guffing answers. They weren't really coming out with actual answers. It was, oh, it's always been like that, that kind of mentality. Not good enough for me. I need to know the reason why. Like that's my inquisitive nature. And then what happened was I found my first Facebook group, and that's when my life changed. I could not believe there was other business owners in the same trades giving each other tips and tricks how to get better. This is probably 11 years ago I first got in here, so this is in its infancy, how to get better at business. And I just thought this was insane. I made sure I didn't share it with anyone else because I was like, knowledge hoarding, and I was writing down all this information. And I started to begin to amass the information which later became Heat Geek, like the Heat Geek library of information on heating. Just during that course, I began to realize what actually was going on. And what was actually going on was what's called peer-to-peer learning. Peer-to-peer learning has been scientifically proven to be the best way to disseminate and engender new knowledge and learn new trades or new kind of techniques or whatever. And what that means is the physical asking of the question, because when you ask a question, either you type it out on Facebook or whatever, Twitter, you're processing that question and understanding the subject more in the very act of asking it. And then when you go and answer other people's questions, you're deepening your understanding of the answer as you organize your thoughts and either type them out. So that engagement, rather than sitting there in a classroom and going, oh, that's how you fit a boiler, is it? Or a heat pump, you're actively engaging the information, using the information, thinking about different ways of describing it, and doing it in a peer-to-peer process. So lots of people being involved means you get different perspectives. So you don't just understand your one way, you get different techniques of different ways. And all of this I found amazing. One of my other pastimes is psychology. I'm kind of like into hypnotism and all that sort of thing. NLP, if you know what NLP is. And I think Heat Geek was born when I was one day sort of, I don't know, wondering about this. I was on the way down to Southampton, which is about 45, 50 minutes from me. And my radio had broken in my car, which meant for a rare time, my mind was allowed to wander, because I don't normally have any time to sort of sit there and just think. And I had this job. It was installing solar thermal. So solar thermal panels at a house there. And I normally don't work that far, but it was, for me at the time, it was quite prestigious to fit solar thermal. And for that week, I had 2 hours of just sitting there, and I just started to think there needs to be something of this to get where do we get this information from? I can't believe a Facebook group. Facebook for learning. This is not right. Like Facebook's like a joke kid thing. Like this isn't where you learn stuff. And it all started to fall into place in my head on this journey. I wasn't planning to think, how can I make it rich? How can I make it big? Not that I'm rich or big now, but something started to take shape in my head just by having like silence and sitting there in a car. And the one thing that I came out on that last day, I came out with is right. I'm going to build this thing that the country or world, whatever, how you look at it, needs. I don't care how it's funded. I don't care if it makes money. I don't care if it doesn't make money. But if I make something to fit what's needed, the money will probably sort itself out, because there'll be value somewhere. There'll be some deal somewhere, advertising. I don't know what. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to fix this problem. I had all this information I'd amassed, which I was kind of eventually actually sharing back out. And I sort of created one place to go and get it, which is heatgeek.com. It's where you find all the, tons of information about heating, and eventually started the YouTube channel, which is probably a bit more successful now. It's a bit more easier to watch a thing than, read an old boring blog. And the other side of that, Go on.
I was just going to ask, what was the plan to distribute that knowledge then, I suppose?
It was always video was going to be the thing, because like one of the main things I noticed on this journey of doing this one job, and it's kind of ironic that it was a renewables job because I was more a gas boiler installer at the time, was that all the information that is out there is written in like Sibsy journals. I don't know if anyone knows Sibsy journals, but if you read them, it's like academic fucking long. Can I swear on this?
Oh, you can swear away, mate.
Well, it's fucking long-winded, like academic writings for other academics to show off how knowledgeable they were. A plumber's not going to read that shit. He wants to just know the answer to the question. Like it needs to be watered down. It needs to be digestible is the term I use. They're going to want to read it. So I want like pictures, colorful pictures, not cartoons, like nice illustrations. And then to take that step further would obviously be video. So like if you watch our more recent videos, we've just started implementing that a bit further. We've now got like animated graphics and stuff like that to try and tell the picture with visuals in just so you can sit there, mong out, not burn energy, but just absorb the information, just let it go in. Do you know what I mean? Not have to work to get the information in. And that's how it's infotainment essentially is what I suppose it would be termed as now. So that was kind of the angle.
From the first videos, the first blogs, how long did it take for you to start to see some traffic? You say, oh shit, this is actually a thing. People are really interested in this. I can see this could have legs.
Well, that's there's two answers to that. One, I know this had legs because I could see where the thing that came in my mind, I could see this was going 2, 3, 4, 10 years ahead of where it needed to be. I was just like waiting for the world to catch up, or the country to catch up, or the industry to catch up. So I was always of that strong, firm belief. I was never in any doubt. I've just been sitting waiting. That's how I felt. And I don't feel like I've arrived. I don't feel like I'm a sire of the industry, but I feel like quite happy and cheeky that I got there first type thing is the way I kind of experience it. But when it came to this is a thing, it was actually on my first blog post and first video that I released. I put a lot of effort into them because I didn't know how they were going to be received. Young guy, who's this guy? I've been in the industry 40 years. Like he's got nowhere near as much experience as me. Experience means fuck all, by the way, within reason. And I didn't know how it was going to be received. It did get mixed reception, but in general, it was absolutely applauded. Both the video I released, it probably would have been the low loss header video. If anyone wants to have a search, why not to use low loss header? Because it was different information you weren't getting anywhere else. Like they come up with a new concept, in there, and is explaining stuff people hadn't heard before, but not in a complex way with complicated equations. So from the offset, I was like, well, this is a thing. And then from there, I've always felt like there's a bit of a dinosaur chasing me. I'm like, right, I got to get out the next one because someone else is going to be seeing this and they're going to be wanting to do a similar thing. And that's pushed me to release more and more content. Looking back, actually, I was just quite sad and no one else would have spent the time making the videos and writing the articles anyway. But at least it gave me that, energy to go and get things done. So
how long then before like you thought, okay, this is more, there's an educational route to this, there could be there could be courses attached to this. How long does that take?
So what it was so we started building up a following. We probably only got up to 4,000 or 5,000 followers on YouTube. And BAYS, the Department for Business, Energy, Industry and Strategy, government body basically, my business partner at the time, Patrick, he noticed a radio advert for a competition they were running to develop some training. And we both knew that I was the best person to write the course because there's already training out there and it's absolute bullshit. It's dog shit. It's attendance training. You turn up for 2 or 3 days, whether you're awake or asleep, you get a certificate. You can hand in, if there is a test, you hand in your test at the end. If the answer's wrong, he'll tell you the right ones. Then you get your certificate. There isn't any training for heating in the UK. There's attendance courses and sales courses. So it's an open goal. And so we pitched, which at the time I felt was really punchy pitch, for 150K to develop this online training course. It is online because most of the training that's needed in heating isn't how to join a pipe together. That's quite simple. You go on YouTube, learn how to join a pipe together. It's how to design heating systems to get the most efficiency back out, which just happened to be really beneficial for heat pumps, which were just kind of although they've been around for a long time, you know, there's been a bit of, you've heard how much they've been in the news recently.
Let me ask you a question there then, Adam, right? Because I've been similar background, been on the tools, into an online world, and you get the whole, well, you know, we're still not ready for online, and online it's this, you know, it is the industry ready to move online. And the first thing you said there was, you know, people turn up to these courses. The apprenticeship model is a face-to-face thing. We work on site, which is a face-to-face thing. When you then move and say this is going online, was adoption to that ever a concern for you to say, well, this is going against the grain to how people have been educated up to this point in time. I'm now going to shift them over here. Was there concerns to say, well, are they going to show up? Are they going to complete the course?
Very different for me because I was firmly entrenched in the other engineers that wanted this information through doing the contacts and communicating with these people every single day. I knew exactly what they needed and what they wanted. I've seen so many people come into Facebook groups saying, oh, I didn't realize there was this much information freely available. We can all help each other. And then over years, watch them grow and turn into like one of the, you know, really highly regarded peers that then passes back down. And then you watch the next one coming. You watch the same journey over and over and over and over and over. And I was sort of noting what these guys were doing and what they were learning. And that's how, so I'd already proven the model in my head. I also knew that these guys that were going a bit further were a bit more techie and were a bit more, I was meeting them online for starters. So they were cool with using a phone and social media. And we actually make that as an integral part of our course. So we force the peer-to-peer training in the course. So no, it wasn't at all. Again, it was just, if I'm early, I just have to wait for the industry to catch up. I felt like I was ahead of the time, and I still feel like we are ahead of the time to a large degree.
What does a contractor get from you to complete a course? Is there like certification in terms of a contractor being registered to install certain that comes a part of it?
Yep. So our course it's a design course. It gives you a BPEC in designing heating systems, modern heating systems, which is soon to be is going to be registered or recognised by MCS, which is the renewable trading body. It also enables you to install Heat Geeks under the Heat Geek Assured brand. So we give you the MCS umbrella so you can access the £5,000 grant for installing heat pumps. So yeah, it's BPEC, so it's fully recognised. It's a full-on proper course.
You were recently featured on the BBC there, I noticed. But was that your first time on like a national broadcaster? And how did all that come about?
So been on Radio 4, Radio 2, but that was my first BBC News appearance. I think it's because we released a video when we noticed these energy prices going haywire. We thought, okay, we could actually help out here on the YouTube channel. Let's do like 11 tips to save energy video. Quick, get it out, jump on the wave, get our subscribers up. And I think it got picked up quite quickly by BBC. So they contacted us and said, could you comment on the announced price hikes? So that's what I did. And yeah, I was quite nervous for the radio interviews, but this one I feel like I was more ready for. I'd already kind of proven who I was and stuff. So it didn't, even though he tried to give me quite a hard time, I was quite relaxed throughout it, to be quite honest. It didn't really faze me at all. It was nice that they were speaking to someone who wasn't like, I'd call him a suit and tie wearer, like who really doesn't know what they hear stuff from the people who do the actual work and re-spout it, but they don't really know, the wrong people get celebrated in the trades, I think.
I'm sure people listening will be shouting at this point. We'll go on, ask them. Like, so what was you were asked for your tips and savings on energy bills? I'm sure you probably won't have the time to go through them all, but in general, I mean, what can consumers do?
The main thing, like for heating, is to get your flow temperatures down. Turn the flow temperature down from the boiler or whatever heat source you've got. Typically, most heat sources, you get more efficiency. That's the main thing. And the same with hot water. You don't need 60-degree hot water. You shower at 37 degrees. Why would you turn your combi boiler up to 60, mix it with cold water to cool it back down again? It doesn't make any sense. So it's mainly about having sort of low temperatures and stuff like that. The BBC guy didn't like that though. He wanted simple tips for old grannies to follow. So I had to go with the old insulated cylinder and pipework stuff, which was annoying because it just is slightly more complicated, annoyingly. Like the best way is to watch the video, because if I say it all now, I'll muck it up.
We'll link it up. We'll link it up in the show notes. I mean, I suppose you've definitely been recognised then as an influencer, I suppose, within the industry. If you had to call on this then at government or regulatory level, let's say, like, what do you think can be done at that level to help them with this cost of living crisis that we're currently going through?
Okay, that's a big question. I'm prepared that one. What do I think could be done? I mean, insulation needs doing. Like, that is the way that we use less energy, is to insulate. When you insulate, that also opens people up to be able to have a heat pump very easily installed. If you've got insulation plus heat pump, you end up with very, very low bills. Like a well-insulated house, and I'm talking Victorian house with cavity wall and normal 300 mil thick loft insulation, double glazing, could be 40% cheaper to run than a gas boiler. That's significant. I say could be, like easily could be. That's not a stretch of the imagination at all. But the current kind of thinking is that they don't really work, or it's just all old thinking. The new heat pumps that are out now, they are good. They do work at high temperature now, and they're a lot more efficient, and they're a lot easier to install. So the government just needs to throw money at it. They're already throwing money at this price cap anyway, because the shortfall that the consumer are paying, the government are topping up, that's going to cost us 120 billion pounds. If you threw 120 billion pounds at heat pumps, you could put a heat pump in every single home in the country and have 10 billion pounds left over. Like, that would save a lot more money, time, effort, carbon, not to mention the carbon targets that we got, legally hit, which we get potentially fined for if we don't hit those. Or I think primarily is insulation. That's the solution, is insulate, in my opinion. Oh, and also, sorry, the most important thing that should be done is to de-link gas pricing from electricity. That's slightly complicated, but the reason the electricity prices are so high is because the high gas price is forcing them to be high. They're linked inside a policy, basically. The minute you de-link them, all of our cheap wind power, solar power, we can access, and bills will fall right back down. And then heat pumps are like 1/10 of the price of a gas boiler to run.
With every crisis, with every crisis that I've seen, and I've only seen probably a couple in my short career, like the financial crisis, 2008, and COVID obviously was the most recent one. But with every one of those comes opportunity, right? And that's one thing I've learned. And with this energy crisis, of course, there will become opportunity. You mentioned something there that just came in my head. So, like, we're going to have retrofitting. That's going to involve insulation. That's going to have boilers, heat pumps, all different types of solar panels, all different types of mixes. Where does the business opportunity lie, in your opinion, for, let's say, a plumbing heating company now over the next, say, short to medium term?
The government are literally being forced to do something. And when they're forced to do something, they have to spend money. So one thing that might be good to get into is heating training, which I happen to be in, obviously, because we need these people to do this job. So I'm going for an application right now, actually, for some of that, which is quite sizable. And if you're not part of that, is the installations itself, because heat pumps are too expensive for normal people. Like, they can't afford them if you're a heating engineer. So money's going to get thrown at that. And if money gets thrown at that and they become affordable for normal homeowners, you're going to have a lot of work. And especially this will be exacerbated by when the government does start delinking gas from electricity, which it will have to do. Gas is a lot cleaner than electricity now. There's other indicators are, for example, electricity has a environmental and social charge on it of 22%. So 22% for green taxes, basically. Gas has none, because gas historically was relatively clean compared to electricity. That's not the case anymore. Now we've got a load of windmills in place. They're actually at kind of parity in cleanliness. So those taxes are only going to get redistributed over to gas. Gas prices go up, electricity prices go down. Electricity is going to be the cheaper fuel, or even a comparable fuel. And then if you run that, if you follow the sequence of events, the heat pump is going to be where everything is pointing towards. So number one, if you're a heating engineer, get into heat pumps. Part and parcel of heat pumps, though, isn't just fitting a box on the wall. It's understanding the heat loss of the property and insulating it. So if you're not a heating engineer, get into insulation, internal wall insulation, external wall insulation. And this isn't just for heat pumps. This is for just general, energy conservation. Learn about the different things and try and be at the forefront of what's coming out, the newest technology. So when you go out and see a customer, you're not giving them the same, blown insulation in their cavity. You've got them 2 or 3 more options. You show that you're a little bit more further ahead. That's where I think the opportunities are. And especially, and this is something for both of those camps to use, either the insulators or the heating engineers. If you half your heat loss, you don't just half the amount of energy. If you get a heat pump as well, you don't just half the amount of energy you require, you actually quarter it or you could quarter it, because the amount the heat pump has to work halves, but it can work at a lower temperature, which drives up efficiency, which means you need even less electricity. So the effects compound on each other, if that makes sense. I'm trying to explain it as simply as possible. You don't just get what you kind of see, you get much more. So especially if you can package these together, maybe team up. If you're a plumber, team up with an insulator. If you're a builder, get a plumber, an insulation team, perhaps create a decarbonisation company. We come and just do your house.
Just thinking, as you were talking through that, you're mentioning different trades, I was just thinking on the top of my head saying, it's an incredible opportunity, incredible time for strategic partnerships across trades.
Absolutely. And now we've got internet and networking like easier than ever. You could be built, and communication easier than ever. You can build a network. You could build national. Well, we've got a national network of installers now because of social media. So yeah, like the opportunities now are like, although the economy doesn't look great, the opportunities have never been better.
With the Heat Geek then, what's the business model behind the Heat Geek? Is the revenue driven from the courses, or do you have other ways of driving revenue within that business?
2 things. So one, the course, which is £1,100 plus VAT, that's the revenue generated for Heat Geek typically. There is a level above that where we give sort of ongoing support. We have weekly calls and stuff to like help people through jobs, etc. If people choose. And then we actually, the other revenue generator, we actually pass to our other installation company, Vito Energy, and that's heat pump installation. So if you're a heat geek, or you train up to be a heat geek, you do the course, we can give an umbrella for your heat pump installation, which means they get the £5,000 grant to upgrade to a heat pump. That goes through us, and we'll generate some money off that. But we do it through our installation company, because that's the MCS registered company, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So what is the grand vision then? What's the grand vision for you? What is the North Star for you or Heat Geek? I mean, is there something else you have your eye on, or is Heat Geek going to be it?
So I've always maintained that I'm going to stay like, what's the word? Malleable, dexterous. You never know when something's going to change. So you don't want to like box yourself in. You want to quickly change with the time to just get whatever low hanging fruit is about. So the vision's always been very wide for me and very undefined. But recently, I've met quite an interesting guy, which I'm not going to go into detail on who that person is. But we've got a bit of a shared vision of, in fact, the exact thing that I mentioned 2 minutes ago, which is the decarbonisation of every home in the country, actually, is the scale we're going to, which will involve insulation, solar panel, and heat pump, and that will be packaged in a way that Mrs. Jones, single mum of 3, can not only afford, can save her money, and also she's not aware what happens. Like it's an experience, a nice clean experience. She doesn't have to learn about stuff. She's not confused by anything. It just happens over, say, a week. Her house transformed to a low carbon home. She's get cheaper bills, and she can sort of be proud of the fact that she's doing a bit for the planet, if you want that as a KPI type thing.
Be really interesting. We will watch closely to see how that goes.
I've probably told you more than I should already, to be fair.
If anyone wants to learn more about Heat Geek, the courses, or indeed just connect with yourself, Adam, where can they find you?
So we're most popular on YouTube. We've got 21,000 followers. So just type in Google Heat Geek. You'll find our website on there. heatgeek.com. We've got a load of articles and stuff like that. You can reach out through there. Very active on Twitter. Get me on Twitter _heatgeek. And I'm on Facebook, so you could literally Facebook me.
Appreciate it, Adam. Thanks for your time. Really great to have you on.
Thanks for having me. Enjoyed it very much.
Time and Materials is brought to you by Livecost, the construction software fully designed to manage your construction financial forecasts. Visit livecost.com to take a product tour or reach out to our team of construction cost experts to transform your project profits. Any links mentioned during this episode, including speaker profiles or any other resources, are available on the podcast show notes. Your feedback is also welcome. We would really appreciate if you could take a moment to leave us a review or email your comments, guest suggestions to hello@timeandmaterials.com. Finally, if you haven't done so already, please don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for listening. Until next time, I'm your host, Ciaran Brennan.